Alrighty. When I was a little bit younger, maybe in my teens, early 20s, I would always have these older individuals, say around 28, 29, near the 30s, that would say, just wait until you get old, your body will start to crumble down. And I would be like, I really can't say anything about it right now because I'm not that age. But now I am around that age, around 29, give or take. And I've come to the conclusion that the reason why most people's body crumble when they get a little bit older is not necessarily because their body gets older. Of course, that's definitely a thing. But in reality, it's more like this. You can no longer hide behind the youth and the vigor that you had. And now all your bad habits are starting to show. And the ways that you did not take care of your body when you were younger are just coming more to the surface. And I would just simply like to say here, along with a bit of a demonstration, now that I am around the 28 mark, give or take, I am actually a little bit more flexible compared to when I was 18-year-old. That was a decade ago. And as I'm just going through these stretches, I would like to say that it's not particularly too difficult to maintain this, approximately 5 to 10 minutes a day. Not even every day, honestly. I think I do this stretching maybe 5-10 minutes, say 4 to 5 times a week, and I do kind of start to enjoy it. But the important thing is, as you get a little bit older, it is a little bit harder to maintain that. It is harder to acquire that level of flexibility. So I would just like to give out some things, some advice, some stretches for you to do while you're younger. And of course, you could do this, you're older. It's not like you can't or anything like that. But this advice is particularly for if you're a little bit younger and you want to grow up and have a body that's still functional and mobile, and you don't want to be one of those guys that's always complaining about old age. Let's get into it. Obviously, the stretches I'm going to show you, they're not necessarily made for you to become as flexible as me per se. They're more of a use for you to be able to be semi-comfortable as you get a little bit older. And one of the main problems as you get a little bit older becomes a lack or inability to raise your hand above your head, especially past your head with two arms at once. Also, another problem that I notice some older individuals have is their elbows start to like calcify at around like this angle. So they lose that ability to fully extend that elbow. The exercise, stretch, it's two things at once that I'm going to show you will help remedy all of that in one piece. Piece by piece, one piece. Aha, it is without a doubt undoubtedly the legendary exercise known as the dead hang. For the uninitiated, a dead hang is simply when you grab a bar and you allow your weight to sag into your shoulders, engage your lats and back, make sure your arms are nice and straight, and hold it. This exercise by itself will do a couple things. By the way, your setup doesn't need to be awesome. Like, look at my setup, it's all cramped and a bit janky, to be honest. I don't even really use this. I kind of use the pull-up bar at the gym, but regardless, I'm just here to demonstrate. The thing is, when you're doing a dead hang, when you're doing it well, your body is directly beneath your hands. Notice how my head is slightly in front of my shoulders. That way, I'm helping facilitate that ability to have those arms behind my head, building strength in that motion. How are we gonna build strength in that motion? Well, let me tell you how. All we're basically gonna do is we're gonna squeeze the bar into an isometric. Right now I'm soft, I'm squeezing. When I squeeze, I'm taking my back, I hope you can see that, and I'm pinching them together. When that happens, I now start to build strength using gravity and a little bit of grip strength as well. But mostly important, that ability to push my shoulders behind my head while I'm hanging. Of course, you can't see this right now, but when you're performing your dead hang, it isn't necessary to actually have your feet be off of the ground. The progression to this is very simple. Grab it and then simply sink that weight into it, and you can have your feet just floating on the ground, touching it, and then just slowly start to skip and hop until you do build up the strength and integrity to be able to just hang yourself off of the bar. Honestly, the dead hang is such a good exercise and stretch all in one, especially if you did it the way I showed you. One more time, when we're doing it, we really want to make sure that we're not looking upwards as if we're about to do a pull-up. We want to be straight and in front of the bar so that our shoulders are completely opening up. Therefore, we have that ability to actually raise our hand up and above our head when we get a little bit older. All these exercises I'm going to show you, it's not like a big time sink. It's just a little bit of a hang here and there. And then you maintain it more or less as long as you continue to do it. Let's hop into the next one. All right, the next exercise is honestly more of an exercise than a stretch. It's known as what I like to call the egg. It looks just like, maybe you can't see that. It looks just like this. It's basically just a Asian squat, third world squat, poverty squat, super low squat, full range of motion squat, where you're sitting on your ankles. And the key thing here is that your ankles are indeed in contact with the ground at all times. All this is an expression of good ankle mobility, flexibility, some good full knee flexion. And if you do start to perform squats, you're now building strength through a full range of motion, which is extremely, extremely important when you're of that older age, because as you get a little bit older, all your ranges of motion start to kind of collapse on one another, and we really don't want that. And we want to continue to maintain all of this as much range of motion as possible for as long as possible. It does make living life a little bit more comfortable. Now, of course, I don't expect you to be able to do this exercise right off the bat. Even young people will struggle with this. I will say, if you're like of the Oriental orientation, it will be a little bit easier for you. I have found, at least through my anecdotal eye looking on other people's point of view, though I have derived and concocted a particularly good method of teaching anyone how to be able to do this holding position with your ankles on the ground. It all begins with some form of a firm structure. Using that said firm structure, my friend, buddy, we're gonna go ahead and grab it. And then all we really do is gonna really suck. I'm not gonna front. It will totally suck if you can't do it. You're gonna hold it, and then you're gonna force those ankles down. What's gonna immediately happen is a great sense of discomfort, a great sense of imbalance, as if you're gonna fall backwards. It is quite vital that we fight through this sense of discomfort and sense of unbalance while maintaining ankles on the ground at all times. Don't be tempted, because you might be tempted, to go ahead and just rock up onto your toes because it feels a little bit easier. But that's not what we're going for right now, partner. We really want them ankles all the way on the ground. Even if our upper back rounds or our posture looks poor, let me give you one tip real quick to make this feel a little bit easier. It is simply, when we're holding it, we want to take them knees and push them to the outside. What that's going to do is it's going to allow our hips space to drop in between our ankles, just making it a little bit easier as opposed to closing it up like that. Thus, while we're holding this, we're going to take the knees, push outside, and we're going to try to maintain a tall posture, eventually ending up like this. I have personally coached a couple of clients who have never exercised in their life, one being an older gentleman in the age of goddamn you're old, and one being a younger girl in the age of goddamn I hate the way you talk, and to both of them to be able to do this with great success in full range of motion squat with a good substantial amount of weight on their backs. So I do know it's possible for you. It might suck, it definitely will suck, but practicing this, say 5 minutes a day until you finally get it, and then doing this for like once a day, every day for like 10 seconds, and you'll more or less maintain this position for the entirety of your life. I also don't think I explained why this is a good thing to do. Kids are small. Kids are tiny. If you're able to get down to that level, it's a little bit more fun to play with them. Especially if you're able to sit on the ground and then easily just stand right back up. Likewise, when it comes to lifting anything of a substantial weight, we all know that good weightlifting form, right? Where there's a box and you want to squat down, grab it, and use your legs. Well, it's a lot easier to do that when your ankles are always in contact with the ground. That way, you don't ever have to start doing this bendination, ruining that back. Not to say that that's particularly bad, but that's not for this video. Point here is, being able to do this motion right here is just useful for more or less everyday life, especially if you have a little bit toddlers running around or you come into contact with the ground, say, more than once in a while. Alrighty, the number 3 stretch we want to do and look at is going to address weak wrists and a constant collapse of the upper back and the spine, just trying to prevent this super rounded posture as you start to age. Of course, falling, what is that? It's like the number 1 injury thing that happens to older individuals. Especially you try to catch yourself on your wrist. pa, and then your wrist snaps because you're just not accustomed to having load on it, because when do you ever fall once you get past a certain age? And we don't want to think that way. We always want to kind of be semi-ready for most things in life. Therefore, the exercise, stretch, mostly a stretch this time, that I have chosen for this is the lovely exercise known as the cobra. When it is done well, let me demonstrate, please. We're laying on the ground. Woo! As we're laying on the ground, we're gonna place our hands on the ground. Placing the hands on the ground, we want our palms to be completely spread, and we're gonna grip the ground a little bit for some stability. Rolling back, we've got that going on, right? Grip the ground, a little bit of stability. Elbows are gonna go inside the body. With the elbows inside the body, that's gonna give us a nice, strong, pushing foundation. We don't want that flaring out, because flaring out, if we push, it's not necessarily the best thing for the shoulders. Same thing for bench pressing. So as we're on the ground with the spreadness, elbows in, you might think that the goal of the cobra is to go backwards like a seal. And if you do that, you will be wrong, my friend, at least from my perspective. When I do a cobra, here's the goal. The goal is never to go backwards. It's always more to go upwards. Allow me to show you. I am trying to push myself directly up towards the sky. If I was trying to push myself backwards, now my spine doesn't feel so happy. But if I just push myself straight vertically down, using my arms, I now feel as if my stomach is getting a nice stretch, along with my spine just being pushed into a completely extended position. Because in my everyday life, it's not often that I get the opportunity in a natural setting or environment to go ahead and hi-ya. Though I do sit quite a lot, and when I sit, I'm kind of like my sitting posture is not the best, especially if I'm leaning against something. And so in order to counter it out, in hopes of countering it out, I go ahead and I bust out the cobra. Look at this extension right here. To make it feel a little bit better and to engage things just a little bit more, we can go ahead and take them back muscles. As we're pressing, we can collapse or squeeze our scaps together just to create a little bit more thoracic arch within our spine. Thoracic is the top part of the spine. One more time. Let me do it at a slight angle. It looks like this is just going straight up. And then let's address the wrist aspect of this stretch. As we're pushing down, we are obviously putting pressure onto our wrist. The pressure we're putting onto our wrist isn't so much that the wrist will start to collapse and snap, but it is enough to give them a bit of a stimulus, so that if you ever do encounter a scenario where you gotta face palm someone really hard, or you fall on someone's face, or you crush someone's face with your palms, then your wrist will still be kind of okay. All of these stretches aren't gonna make you Superman, they're just gonna make you a man that's not broken, and that's ideal, hopefully. Next one. The next stretch I would like to introduce, well, go ahead and tackle the problem known as a little bit too much time sitting. You see, when we sit a lot, especially as time progresses, things start to shorten and we start to get really strong and comfortable in this position and weaken others. The main muscle I want to address is known as the quadricep muscle. While we're in this seated position, it is more or less be in a state of shortening with all the comfy chairs and sitting that's going on in the world at all times. It would be good if there was an exercise or stretch to help counter it out. Lucky for you, I know just the one. If we come over here, the stretch that I would like to introduce is one known as the hero's pose or supine quadricep stretch. I prefer the second lather one, but hero's pose is a lot easier to remember. When it's done well, we're basically just on our toes, on our ankles. Can you even see that? We're on our toes, on our ankles. Or to make it a little bit easier, we are now on the flat of our feet. With this position, if we apply what's known as a little bit of a twist to the side, we're gonna start to feel the stretch a little bit more on the opposite quadricep. If we bring it back up, it add a twist to the other side, using the offhand as balance, we start to feel a little bit of stretch on the other side of the arm that we're supporting ourselves with. Likewise, if we're on our toes, okay, if we're on our toes and we do the same thing, we're gonna feel a stretch going along here. If we lean over here, we're gonna feel a stretch going along here. This stretch in general is just really excellent for taking that quad muscle and ripping it apart in a good way. If we take it even further, and overall we do kind of want to take this a little bit further as we get better, time progresses, we can go even lower until we are completely flat on our upper backs. In this sense, my hip flexors, these bad boys right here, give or take, are being stretched along with my quadricep. It is quite excellent. The way to get down there is, I already showed it, is simply to start to turn. As we turn, we can start to fall onto our elbows a little bit. Of course, this isn't necessarily a get super flexible video. It's more of a, hey, let's make sure we incorporate this into our simple routine every day, and I'll show you what that could look like in the video, in order to help maintain a body that's not horrible for when we get a little bit older. This stretch right here, super good for stretching out the quads. Probably my favorite quad stretching stretch in the entire world. Give it a try. Next one. This next stretch, I don't know what it necessarily solves in the world of, wow, I'm old, but I do think it's good to have the ability to be able to spread your legs relatively wide at whim. What is it good for? I don't know. Let's say you're walking and there's a banana. Oh, slip, but I'm okay. The stretch that I'm talking about, it is one stretch, probably the number one stretch that I've done the most in my entire life. It is the basis and foundation upon which I build my stretching routine around. And it is also maybe my favorite stretch in the world. Not necessarily because I'm inclined to do it or like I have a genetic advantage to it, but because I find it to be one of the most useful ones in terms of the scenario of everything. And of course, I'm just talking about the basic pancake. Well, okay, it's just like this. You don't need to do the get up part, but I thought the get up part was kind of cool. In essence, all we're really doing is we're taking them legs, right? We got them nice and spread. Legs that are nice and spread helps create a big range of motion in your life. Whether you're old or young, I think this is just a great stretch to add in, no matter what. To do it well, it's all about engaging the musculature, correct? You see my feet right here. If we look at them toesy-woesies, they're kind of slim and dead. We don't really want that. We want them to be active. In order to make them active, we're gonna pull them backwards, nice and strong. Pull them backwards, nice and strong. My quadricep, you see how that's soft and then flexing? I'm gonna make it flex strong. And then with my body, I'm gonna try to be upright. If you could just maintain this posture right here, that right there is already more than most people. Of course, over time, we're gonna try to go forwards. Notice how I said forwards, not down. The problem with going down is that creates a mind-muscle-body connection that basically tells the individual to start looking down and rounding that torso, which we really don't want. Instead, the cue that I like to use is the idea of, say it with me now, let's go forwards. When we go forwards, that's gonna extend our spine. And if we maintain this forward trajectory throughout the whole motion, eventually we get to the ground and our posture is nice. Of course, doing this your first time is just darn near inconceivable. So how do we make this stretch a little bit easier? And it starts with the elevation of the booty. Using a form of a pillow or a lot of pillows or something. I'm just gonna use my hoodie for now. The second we elevate our hips a little bit, we now introduce a little bit more gravity within our usage. With this right here, it's easier to actually extend those hips upwards. Right now, my elevation is only a couple inches, but you could definitely stack it up to be like about a foot and a half, even 2 feet if you have to. And then with the legs spread as far as possible, we're gonna do exactly what I just did on the ground, but just moving forwards. Again, this video isn't necessarily become the most flexible you that you can be. It's the, hey, don't be a horrible you that you can be by being passive. Let's be a little bit active. And again, I just like the idea of having a good pancake, no matter what you do in your stretchination. And that's what that was. Overall, It's not necessarily that you get old and then your body starts to crumble. One more time, I'll say it. When you're young, youth hides how old your body really is. And we really don't want that. We want to build an old, healthy body while we're young. Because when we do get older, wow, is the maintenance super easy, at least from my point of view. Now you know.